I was at a cocktail party talking to somebody about a training program they'd recently been on. How was it? I said. Oh, not so good, she said. And here's how it went. It was a program teaching people how to work in different countries, an international skills type program. And apparently the instructor started out by saying, over the next 4 days, I'm going to share some of my stories and we'll have plenty of time for all of us to share our own experiences. But the problem was the instructor started to get so excited about her own stories. By the end of the week, nobody in the group had actually shared their stories. Have you ever had that temptation to kind of do a lot of talking? And in fact, it's often very relevant. You think you're doing the right thing because we want to present well, we want to give stories that help people learn. But more often than not, learning is more valuable when we step back. In fact, we step out of the picture and we allow the learners to tell their stories. And instead of us telling our stories and sharing our conclusions, we encourage them to reflect and show their conclusions. Now, I wrote a story just recently about keynote speakers. We're not keynote speakers. It's not about how we present in a classroom. Not that that's an excuse to be a sloppy presenter. What we are is we're people kind of like physical therapists. When people come into class, if they're going to learn, they have to fire their neurons. And our job is to do everything we can to help them fire their neurons. Challenge them, ask them questions, get them doing exercises, give them the discovery exercises. The more that we talk, the more they forget. And what we need to be doing is saying, what can we do to disappear out of the picture so everything happens within the learner's minds? You see, learning doesn't take place out the front of the classroom. It doesn't happen on a PowerPoint slide. It happens in their heads. So as we think about this, I actually like to say that the best trainers are invisible. I mean, not like Casper the Ghost, but the less we're seen and the more the learners see their experiences and what they're doing, the more powerful that learning becomes. Now, it's not good for the ego, I know that. It's also not good if your boss says you've got to be a great presenter, because we know that if you're a good presenter, 80% of your PowerPoint will be forgotten and probably about 70% of what you say will be forgotten. But most of what they do and remember and think about will be retained. So how do we make this work? How do we become invisible and not be that trainer that talks too much about our own experiences and stops the learner from talking about theirs? Well, here's a couple of things to do. The first thing is, let's change our mindset. This workshop is not about us, it's about the learners. How can we get them to do the work of learning? Secondly, let's remember learning doesn't take place out the front of a classroom, it happens in the minds of the learners. So what can we do to help them do that? Exercises, questions, give them discovery projects. Anything that forces them to solve problems, answer questions, and practice, practice, practice is what leads to it. And the third thing is, when we're doing this, let's get comfortable with trusting them to do the learner. You know what? Learners come in with more resources than we mostly like to think. And if we trust them to do the learning, they will learn far more powerfully. And you know what? When that happens, when they go out and they leave our workshops with lots of learning, they change the way they work, they change their organizations. And that's a success for training.